You're about to listen to the Dr. Daliah Show. Sassy, stimulating medical talk radio. Any medical advice Dr. Daliah Wax gives on her show should not be substituted for an actual visit to your medical provider. And now, here's Dr. Daliah.
Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-DOC-DALI, 1-877-DOC-DALI. So last year it seemed everybody was going to Iceland. This year I'm having students and friends and everybody's checking out Sicily, which is definitely on my bucket list. Sicily is amazing. Well, as many of you heard, there was an eruption of Mount Etna. Mount Etna is, I think, one of Europe's most active volcanoes. So it had a pretty large eruption. There's videos of tourists fleeing in the area. Mount Etna is near Catania, I believe. A very gorgeous hot spot. And so I spoke to some of my previous students. There's been a red alert for travel advisory, although we think that's going to be downgraded. But America, we've been watching some volcanic activity on the America side of things. Remember they were talking about Yellowstone and Washington State. Apparently Mount Spur in Alaska is one that they're watching because they've been seeing some increased seismic activity. There's an underwater volcano off the Oregon coast that's also been drawing a lot of eyes. We've been told a few days ago that a massive volcanic eruption is imminent in America amid this earthquake surge we've been seeing along the Pacific. And they say seismic activity levels in Alaska's Mount Spur soared earlier this week, or which would have been last week, now that we're in a new week. And so the Alaska Volcano Observatory said earthquake activity beneath Mount Spur remains elevated following a steady decline from late March through April. Shallow earthquake activity has increased in the past 2 weeks. In March, levels of about 100 events per week. Now, the advisory says it's still not at high probability, but we don't want any volcanoes erupting. I remember the whole Mount St. Helens thing in the 80s. I mean, Mount St. Helens, that was rough. And one of my friends from school had brought ash to class from what was around her house when it happened. And this was like a year or two after she moved, because then I think they moved south to Arizona. So, people always ask, how much more dangerous is volcanic ash than like wildfire smoke? It's all dangerous. You don't want to breathe any of that in. The initial issue with any wildfire or volcano is obviously the proximity to where the fire is. You want to get as far the hell away as that, not to mention wildlife, insects, things leaving, which makes, scholars wonder if the 10 plagues that happened during the Bible related to volcanic activity in the area, with the locusts fleeing and the darkness and fire, brimstone, all that stuff. Not that fire and brimstone was a plague, but still. But then the after effect of the air, not good. I was flying into Iceland last year when there was the volcano. Fortunately, these coastal areas can very easily dissipate the air pretty quickly, especially with the winds and currents. But, volcanic ash can have silica in it. And so one concern we have is silicosis, which is a very chronic, debilitating lung disease that can happen. Volcanic ash is different than wildfires. Wildfires can still pose, I think, just as much pulmonary hazards, because what is getting burned? You're getting plastics burned. You're getting chemicals burned. You're getting all sorts of, things that aren't necessarily just natural. Because people say, well, gosh, if it's nature, it's not going to hurt us. You don't understand what heat does to things. Even in nature is not something that we want to be around. But, we've been seeing a lot of seismic activity in California. We always do. There's that fault line, the San Andreas Fault, as well as others. Seismic activity and grumblings and, of these mountains obviously makes us, kind of concerned, and I worry about my students. I worry about my friends who are near these volcanoes. But what I would recommend for any of you traveling, whether it's to Yellowstone or Alaska or this underwater volcano in Oregon or Hawaii gets their share of volcanoes, is to always research, know your local activity, contact, and you want to be very careful. You don't want to necessarily contact your travel agent or tour company because they don't want to do refunds. What you want to do is you want to go through the National Weather Service. You want to go to the authorities and find out exactly what are they advising. I believe Sicily had a red alert and then they marked it down to orange. With Iceland a few years back for weeks, planes had to be diverted, and I think they only have one airport there. But when I flew last year, they didn't have to divert, even though the volcano was going. They could watch it. I mean, people are kind of pretty. This isn't their first rodeo, so they know how to address it. But even if these countries or these cities or states is allowing tourism, if you have pulmonary issues, COPD, asthma, if you are at risk of, medical complications, even, heart disease, you want to make sure that that's the best air for you. Now, I love Alaska. Alaska for me, oh my gosh! When you breathe the air, my lungs are like, woohoo, yippee! And I kind of live in an area in Las Vegas, Nevada, where we're kind of near the mountains, so we still get good air, but it's a lot of dust. And so, when I go to Alaska or I go, to Colorado Springs, boy, do my lungs feel happy and they thank me. So, just be aware. But in terms of upcoming volcanic activity, we'll keep you posted. There's a lot of people doing travel. It's a mile-wide underwater volcano off the U.S. coast. They say this is expected to erupt at any time. Now, this is not anything that I think is going to hurt tourism or local residents, because this axial seamount near Oregon is about 300 miles from the U.S. coast. So, but obviously it could cause a lot of sequelae as it pertains to fish, as it pertains to surf, tide, that kind of thing. So, we'll keep you posted, but wow. All right. Hope everybody's okay. Praying for those in Sicily. 1-877 Doc Daliah.
In a study, it was found that 33% of 44 herbal supplements had no trace of the advertised herb. Don't let that happen to you. Hi, this is Dr. Mitch. If you want to ensure quality, please go to totalwellness.com. Supplements made for physicians, only now available to you too. totalwellness.com, helping you to look good, feel good, and enjoy total wellness.
Dr. Daliah here. Are you tired, burned out, gaining weight, succumbing to the daily pressures of life? Well, how's your dopamine doing? How you feel right now, how you'll feel an hour from now, and how you'll feel next week is completely reliant on your dopamine. Our daily motivation and willingness to push through challenges depends on the intricate chemical process dopamine provides. Christian Kalikas and I created Deploying Dopamine, a book that tells you what dopamine is, when it dysfunctions, and how to successfully deploy it when needed. Find Deploying Dopamine on Amazon today. Check it out.
Self-reliance. It's not a phrase we hear much in our culture these days. It might conjure up images of pioneers, the West, rifles, strapping men, and strong women. But what does it mean for us in today's world? The New American Magazine has just released its latest collector's edition, Self-Reliance, Foundation of Freedom. In it, the New American authors outline the necessity of self-reliance for a free people, tips for self-reliant living, and the importance of not giving up hope. This unique edition includes articles on the self-sufficiency of the founders, preparing for a worst-case scenario, firearms, financial self-reliance, the importance of community, and many other topics by expert writers. Now, for a limited time, the New American is offering a bundle of 3 collector's editions, Self-Reliance, The Great Reset, and Trump World, for just $19.95. Available at shopjbs.org. Visit shopjbs.org today.
All right. We are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-Doc-Dolly, 1-877-DOCDALI. Big thanks to Talk Media Network for making the show happen. Big thanks to Daniel, our producer. And big thanks to y'all for tuning in. We really do appreciate it. Don't forget to follow us on X or Twitter at Dr. Daliah, Facebook, The Dr. Daliah Show, and on YouTube, click like and subscribe. So this weekend, there was a horrible terror attack on a very peaceful assembly of people silently holding up, I believe they were pictures of the hostages that are still held captive by Hamas in Gaza. And an attack led to multiple serious injuries of individuals who were just there for a peaceful assembly. The suspect is in custody. The FBI is calling this a targeted act of violence. I call it terrorism and anti-Semitic. But this was a peaceful march in support of Israeli hostages. And there was a 45-year-old suspect named Mohammed Sabri Solomon who used a makeshift flamethrower and threw Molotov cocktails that burned multiple victims, 8 people injured. I think a couple of them had to be life flighted. And the suspect was screaming, "Free Palestine." Now, Solomon, from what we understand, is an Egyptian national who overstayed his visa. He arrived in California in 2022 on a non-immigrant visa, according to CBS News. The original visa expired February 2023, and Solomon has been living in Colorado Springs ever since. He never left. So the FBI is now conducting court-authorized law enforcement activity related to the attack. This happened on Pearl Street Mall in Boulder, Colorado. This was it's in the same county as Colorado Springs. I was just there, Colorado Springs. I mean, amazing people, the beautiful city. But it was a walk to remember the Israeli hostages who are still in Gaza. It's a shame that we still have to have these reminders. The hostages should have been released. They should have never even been taken back October 7th, 2023, after the massacre by Hamas and individuals who joined Hamas to massacre a bunch of Israelis and then rape, burn, behead, and abduct. So those of us who care about the hostages are going to be, reminding people they're still there, they're still suffering. We might be, drinking our coffee and doing our own thing, but there are people there still being tortured, raped, starved. And every minute, every second of them being there is torture for them. And, we want to remind, the country. I don't understand why the UN, I don't understand why all world leaders aren't trying to get them back. It baffles me. So when you have, some peaceful people do this walk, and then somebody is screaming, right, to free Palestine, injuring 4 women, 4 men, some as old as 88 years old. I mean, what are you doing? And people want to lump it in. They talk about how anti-Semitic attacks or anti-Semitism has risen at least 900%. I think anti-Semitism has always been here, but yes, these attacks have gone up. And people say, well, yeah, that when you say free Palestine, that's not anti-Semitic. What this guy did with Molotov cocktails, flamethrowers, anybody not acknowledging that we have hostages, that what happened on October 7th was brutal, evil, disgusting, yes, will be deemed anti-Semitic. How could you not? Any group that, in fact, I think even anti-human. Free Palestine is a movement that should be about freeing Palestine from Hamas. I don't think many of these Palestinians, especially those in the LGBTQAI plus community, want to be ruled by Hamas. They don't have freedom like they do in Israel to be who they are. So free Palestine should mean free Palestine from Hamas, because Hamas is the one that's been running them, not Israel. But instead, people use that as a justification for the innocent hostages who were at a peace rally or on a kibbutz. Again, peaceful. I mean, you want to go to war with Israel, then you go to a battlefield and you say, okay, let's meet in the battlefield and we'll hammer it out. But you abduct women, children, older individuals, you behead babies, you rape, murder, shoot them while raping them. You're saying that is for humanitarian causes? Are you kidding me? It's disgusting. And so if you're really about being there to help somebody and your whole motive is humanitarian, then why would you flamethrow and Molotov cocktail an 88-year-old who has nothing to do with that? It's people want to silence us. We can't speak out about there being hostages being, tortured. That should be a bipartisan. A whole world should be, on the side of let's get the hostages out. And then you could address who's ruling Palestine. Is it Hamas? Is it Israel? Although it's Hamas, but you could always debate that later. But the hostages are completely exclusive. That's a separate issue. Not to mention Hamas should be condemned and should be nowhere near Israel for what they just did. They should be nowhere near anybody. And so I guess they claimed that there was an attack on their people, and Israel's like, we didn't. That wasn't us. There's all these false flag accusations. There's all this, or there's false flag reports, and can we concentrate on the hostages and the fact that innocent people, including senior citizens, just sitting there with signs showing the faces to the hostages. People say, all right, that's hostages. But when you see the eyes of the kids, when you see the eyes of the women and the men, when you see, it humanizes, the situation. And these people are being attacked. Somebody had asked me, do I feel safe? Do we, I don't think any of us feel safe, whether you're Jewish or not. Because there were non-Jews at that protest too. Now, it wasn't even a protest. It was just a peaceful reminder that there are hostages there. If you think you're on the safe side, where it's like, well, I'm not Jewish, so they're not going to hate me. I'm going to be okay. No, the hate will extend. Catholics were killed by Nazis. LGBTQ AI plus community members have been targeted for centuries. And so, you when you allow hate, it'll always come back and get you. For those of you with a Tesla, you saw what happened there. You thought you were on one side going green and following the Newsom mandate and the Biden mandate, only to then this year get your car keyed. I mean, the hate will always turn around. When there's hate, it finds new victims, like cancer. You might say, okay, well, cancer doesn't like these cells, so they'll leave me alone. You're still going to be affected. If there's cancer surrounding, you're eventually going to die too, because you're a cell in a body that has cancer. You have to address hate. And this idea that a random person could be who shouldn't have even still been in the country, could be allowed to cause such mayhem. And I'm really concerned that a couple of these people with very severe injuries could die. And what was their crime? What did they do? Nothing. They just were alerting people that, and reminding people we still have hostages. And we're here to pray for them. I mean, some of us pray silently, some of us pray openly. So what is the powers that be want us to be quiet? They want us to hide. Okay, we're not going to hide because we saw what happened. Okay, we're not going to stay quiet. I wish more could be done. And I don't understand why it's all on Israel and America. I think every country should be trying to get those hostages out. Because the fighting won't stop until the hostages come home. Or at least their bodies returned. God forbid that any more die. But, Hamas is keeping the bodies. It's barbaric. It's disgusting. So don't try to tell me you're being a humanitarian and you're trying to be on the side of humanity when you are flamethrowing and attacking or gunning down a couple who was at a Jewish museum in D.C. See, they want to scare people. Instead, you empower us. So, one thing about, Trump being reelected is people like, no. Okay, I'm done with the cancel culture. I'm done with feeling threatened. I'm going to say what needs to be said, if it's common sense, what's ethical, what's right about, what I think needs to be done with the border or what needs to be done with the economy or whatever. And you could try to cancel me and make fun of me or whatever, but those tactics don't work. We're American. As Americans, we should have freedom of speech, freedom of thought, and not fear, fighting for what we believe is right when we do it by peaceful assembly. 1-877-Doc-Dolly. Don't go away.
At Hot Shot Secret, we share the science behind common diesel problems and their solutions. For example,
diesel fuel cetane levels.
in many states, the cetane rating in diesel fuel is 42 to 45. Most diesel engines operate more efficiently with a cetane rating of 48 to 50. One treatment of Hot Shot Secret Diesel Extreme will raise your cetane 7 points, increase fuel economy, and improve cold starts. Due to a cleaner burn, there are less hydrocarbons and particulate matter in your exhaust. This reduces the blockage of your diesel particulate filter. Using Diesel Extreme generates 83% less DPF regeneration. The 6-in-1 Diesel Extreme formula also includes the most concentrated detergent on the market, lubricity enhancer, water demulsifier, rust and corrosion inhibitors, and a fuel stabilizer.
Hot Shot Secret Diesel Extreme is available nationwide at truck stops, fine farm and auto stores, and online at hotshotsecret.com. Hot Shot Secret, powered by science.
Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-Doc-Dolly, 1-877-DOC-DALI. So one of my patients this weekend needed his child to have a note from a doctor saying that they need to be on probiotics. And they were going to camp, and that the camp would not dispense any supplement or medication without there being a doctor order. And so I asked, I go, why is the child on probiotics? Oh, for gut health. And I'm like, but, are they eating healthy? Usually for gut health, we want you to have a balanced diet. Probiotics is a fascinating science in terms of how we can utilize probiotics to realign the gut microbiome after an antibiotic wipes it out, C. diff infections, hospitalizations. And sometimes if we feel like people have certain nutritional deficiencies affecting the type of growth, there's, the probiotic world is still a rapidly evolving one. But we don't just routinely have kids on probiotics. We don't want you to put something in you that we haven't tested that might not be necessary. And so when I asked, I go, why is the child on it? He said, well, because when the child goes off of them, she has abdominal pain. I'm like, have they seen a GI doctor? Do we know why? Now, that child might need an artificial infusion of bacteria into her gut, but that's not something that should be managed without a medical doctor overseeing. And so, but he said, but it's, almost questioning why I was asking. He's like, well, it's to improve gut health. That everybody's on them to improve gut health. That's a commercial. Be very, very careful with these commercials. Mind you, I'm not anti-probiotics. I think some people really need them. But we're looking at these commercials thinking this is sound science. So another study has shown that we have to be pretty careful with some of our supplements and medications because of liver toxicity. Cases of drug-induced liver injury are on the rise. And there's a lot of hidden dangers in many of these supplements or medications. Hepatotoxicity is toxicity of the liver. Hepatitis is inflammation of the liver. And so these can cause liver failure. They say, according to Fox News, cases have risen in Western countries since the 1960s. They say 1/5 of the total population who are prescribed medications will experience drug-induced liver injury. 20% of us. This is according to research published in the journal Toxicology Reports. You know how many medications and supplements people are taking? And they think 20% of us are going to have liver injury. Potential triggers of liver injury include herbal products, dietary supplements, and some medications. If you have a pre-existing liver condition and don't know about it, you could be at higher risk. If you know about it, you're also at higher risk, right? Because you have a liver issue. If you have certain nutritional deficiencies, pregnant women. So the liver's job is to detoxify things and break down substances. So many of these medications are designed knowing how the liver will work to break it down. You know, we think we swallow something and then that's its form as it gets to our tissues. No, it has to be altered and changed sometimes in the body and broken down. And so these medications are relying on this set system the body has. Well, what if your liver's not working correctly? Now these medications are stressing the liver, let alone could be stressing other parts of your body. If you don't metabolize the substances properly, let's say your GI system, right? You swallow a pill, you're supposed to have a certain amount of acidity in your stomach, but you've been taking antacids, so now the acidity might be a little different, so the pill might not be as metabolized to the degree that it should. Now the dosing coming to the liver is different. There's also cytochrome P450 and other sorts of pathways that could get disrupted by you taking another medication that is affecting the second medication you're taking. Now, most medications are supposed to be, approved and safety tested. But if you notice, many of them have in their PI or prescribing information that this could cause liver injury. So you're taking medications that can cause liver injury. What's a very common medication that could do that? Well, acetaminophen. Whether you take it in the form of Tylenol or paracetamol, that could cause liver injury. And it's over the counter. Non-steroidal anti-inflammatories like NSAIDs, ibuprofen, naproxen. Aspirin could do it. Your statins for cholesterol. Antibiotics like tetracyclines. Corticosteroids. You know how many people are asking, I need steroids for my poison ivy rash. I need steroids for my strep throat. I need steroids for my sinus infection. Steroids could affect the liver. For those of you with rheumatoid arthritis, methotrexate. And then not to mention their supplements. I think there was a recent study about turmeric that we're going to look a little more into. And turmeric, ashwagandha, green tea, these could cause liver toxicity. Green tea has a lot of health benefits, but for some, it can affect the liver. A big thing people were doing 15, 20 years ago was red yeast rice. They didn't want to take a statin, but they used red yeast rice because it acted like a statin. And they wanted to protect their liver. But red yeast rice can also affect the liver. Garcinia cambogia, black cohosh. People using black cohosh for menopause symptoms, that could affect the liver. So there's an estimation, according to Fox News, that 15.6 million U.S. adults have used at least one of those products in the past 30 days. So, drug-induced injury is not something we want to mess around with. This Garcinia cambogia is a popular weight loss, alleged weight loss supplement, which I don't think we have a lot of evidence that it works. Turmeric we use for anti-inflammatories, antioxidant, but it can be toxic in large dosages. Now, somebody could say, but Daliah, I just won't take too much. Yeah, but what if you're taking it every day? Does it accumulate? What if your body doesn't, metabolize it properly? I get moms calling all the time saying they want oral antifungals for their child's ringworm. I had another patient this weekend. She said, yeah, my child has ringworm. The cream's not working. He needs an oral. And I'm looking at the rash. I go, this might not be ringworm. All right. There's a lot of annular or ringed rashes. All right. We could see it with, there's so many different conditions that could cause ringed looking rashes. The first thing we think about is ringworm, and usually most creams work. but she seemed upset that I wasn't going to put her child on a few-week-long regimen of an oral antifungal that could affect the liver. In fact, the American Academy of Family Physicians says we're not even supposed to put you on toenail oral antifungal medication without confirming it. Now, I think it's obvious when you look at the nail, but it's because these medications could affect the liver. We used to check the liver. So what we used to do, like if you had toenail fungus and you wanted to be on an oral antifungal, the treatment is 3 months. So we used to test your liver day one, start you on the medication if your liver was okay. At the 6-week mark, recheck your liver to make sure that it's not hurting the liver, give you a refill for the remaining 6 weeks. And then at the end of the 3 months, recheck your liver. Well, they stopped that. They said that's too much. It's costing the patients too much. But now people are getting all these antifungal medications without knowing if they even have liver disease or if it's affecting their liver. So, oral antifungals work really well, but now we're getting resistance and we don't know, who's having liver issues. So, you don't know what you're getting all the time with these supplements. They don't have the same vetting process as a pharmaceutical. And so you might be thinking you're taking it because the commercial or the ad was really colorful. Check with your medical provider. 1-877-DOC-DALIAH. Hi guys, Dr. Daliah here. Addictions can sneak up on us and come in many forms, whether it's drugs, alcohol, sex, video games, porn, or something less obvious such as food, internet, or shopping. Addiction can seem innocent at first and then evolve into an insurmountable evil. In our book, Addiction Basics, Caitlin Kalikas and I dive into the common addictions and provide tips for identifying and preventing these before they sneak in and take over our lives. Addiction Basics can be found on Amazon or my website, drdaliah.com. Check it out.
Carl Amari here to tell you about our newest website for old-time radio lovers. It's 100radioshows.com. At this site, there are 5 old-time radio shows waiting for you to download free as our gift to you, and be sure to browse the additional 700 old-time radio shows available to you for 70% off by using the promo code RADIO at checkout. This is a limited-time offer, so log on to 100radioshows.com. That's 100radioshows.com.
At Hot Shot Secret, we share the science behind common diesel problems. For example,
Diesel fuel cetane levels.
the cetane rating in diesel fuel is 42 to 45. Most diesel engines operate more efficiently with a cetane rating of 48 to 50. One treatment of Hot Shot Secret Diesel Extreme will raise your cetane 7 points, increase fuel economy, and improve cold starts.
Hot Shot Secret Diesel Extreme is available nationwide at truck stops, fine farm and auto stores, and online at hotshotsecret.com. Hot Shot Secret, powered by science.
In a study, it was found that 33% of 44 herbal supplements had no trace of the advertised herb. Don't let that happen to you. Hi, this is Dr. Mitch. If you want to ensure quality, please go to totalwellness.com. Supplements made for physicians only now available to you too. totalwellness.com, helping you to look good, feel good, and enjoy total wellness.
All right. We are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-DOC-DALIAH, 1-877-DOC-DALI. So when I was in school, if I wanted to communicate to another student, I would pass them a note, or I would whisper, or I would shut the hell up, pay attention in class, and wait till the bell rang, and we were outside in the hall. And I'm a pretty loquacious person. So, and I've always had a lot to say. Oftentimes, I would just say it in class. Now, if I thought that, something was funny and I wanted to make a joke, rather than whispering the joke to the person next to me, I would just, deliver it to the whole class, make people laugh, got in trouble a lot in school. But, there was a protocol. There were rules. You followed the rules, but I learned. I got good grades. And from what I remembered, I went to 12 schools. No child was left behind because if anybody did struggle, they got after school tutoring or teacher help, or the parents got involved, or there were extra classes that they could take. And we got stuff done. Well, things are a little different now because we have cell phones. So not only is the boy you like texting you, you hope, or, reading your texts, maybe giggling, but your girlfriends are too. Guy friends are. There's tweets. There's news. There's funny videos, funny memes. And your phone is just active all the time. It's interesting. You don't hear people say kids need to get away from the TV. They need to stop watching TV. I don't even think kids watch TV anymore. They go to their phones. That's where they get their entertainment. They may watch a movie on their phone, but we ended the whole sitting in front of the TV thing. Why? Because they're sitting in front of their phones. Well, that wouldn't be an issue if we weren't seeing rises in depression, anxiety, headaches, myopia, where they're having issues seeing without glasses, poor sleep, obesity, and lack of proficiency in school. Now, I lectured to students. This was years ago. I visited a high school, and half the kids in the class had phones. So this had to have been maybe about 10 years ago. Where not everybody had a phone these days, but I'm a guest lecturer. I have a very busy schedule. I'm telling them some really, really good stuff. Okay? And you saw the eyes of many people listening. But then I saw a whole bunch of heads down on their phones. Now, I taught medical school, and people would check their phones, but they wanted to learn. So they put their phones down. I never had to say phones down. They were adults then, as opposed to the high school students I was talking to. But if somebody wants to learn, the cell phone's not going to be an issue. The problem is students have lost the desire to learn. Now, you have some students who are just super students, but the average student is like, look, what job is this going to help me with? AI's doing everything. Calculators are doing everything. You want me to find the area under a curve or the diameter of a circle or memorize Pythagorean theorems when I'm not going to use that? And so they're not paying attention. And these teachers are frustrated. When they say phones down, they can't compete with the phone. I can't compete with the phone. My husband's talking to me, and then I get a text or I get a news alert, and my attention goes to that. What I've done now is when my husband comes into the room to talk to me, I show him that I'm flipping the phone and putting it down. He's never asked for that, but I want him to know that my eyes are on him. Also, he's kind of handsome, so, but we get distracted. So there's multiple states that have active laws or executive orders now that are banning and restricting cell phones. According to Campus Safety, as of May 2025, so last month, Alabama, Florida, Georgia, Indiana, Kentucky, Louisiana, New York, North Dakota, Oklahoma, South Carolina, Tennessee, Utah, Virginia, and West Virginia have either laws or executive orders banning cell phones in schools. Other states that limit the cell phones include Arkansas, Arizona, California, and Ohio. I think one of the first states to ban cell phones was DeSantis in Florida. May 2023, he signed House Bill 379, making it the first state to use the legislative process to ban cell phones in classrooms. According to the law, by the way, the legislator approved the bill unanimously. According to the law, a student may possess a wireless communications device while the student is on school property or in attendance at a school function. However, a student may not use the device during instructional time, except when expressly directed by the teacher solely for educational purposes. A teacher shall designate an area for wireless communication devices during instructional time, Each district school board shall adopt rules governing the use of a wireless communications device by student while the student is on school property or in attendance at a school function. So I of the mindset that the student should be able to access it if there's a school shooting. So they have to be close enough to it. But cell phones are away when they're during instruction and tests. And for those people, freaking out about that, you can't take a test and have your cheat sheet, have your book. This, you were never able to take your when I went to school, you could not use a calculator. Your desk had to be cleared, hands on your desk. And then the teachers would, watch to see if you were cheating or looking at something. So, kids not accessing cell phones during test time or instruction is not rocket science. However, how do you have their cell phones in a location where if they need to, run, hide, duck, cover, they could at least contact authorities and contact, who they need to. And it's sad that this is the world we're living in right now. Every parent on the planet would be like, I agree, no cell phones in the classroom, except everybody's worried about another school shooting and worried that these kids will not be able to call authorities. So we shouldn't be in this situation where these kids feel like they can't be safe. So I want my children to have access to their phones, but I don't want them I don't want them driving with them. You know how many times I see people on their phone? Why? Well, because they don't spend money on their playlists, so they YouTube their music, or they're answering texts, or they're looking at Google Maps, or what's Waze is the one with the cops and the radar. I need to download it, honestly, with the amount of tickets I get. So Indiana has a school cell phone ban. Louisiana, all of these schools looking at. I think more. I think Virginia might even be looking at it as well. So, as a parent, what sort of conversation do you have with your child? Well, there might be other devices that somebody can have to alert authorities. I'm wondering if that's going to be the next step of tech, because here we are. Having a phone, which is our computer, it's our address book, it's our telephone, it's our calculator, it's our flashlight. It's actually my plate. When I need to set something, like I use my phone for everything. But if what we want is our kids to have access to call the authorities or their family members, then maybe there's like a med alert bracelet or something like that we could use. So we got to figure something out, because these kids aren't passing and aren't learning the way they need to. 1-877-DOC-DALIAH.
Did you know that healthy arteries make a gas? Yes, actually 3 known gases. Hi, I'm Dr. Mitch, and nitric oxide is a gas that's readily made all day long to keep our arteries open by relaxing the blood vessel walls. By doing this, our circulation is increased, bringing blood, oxygen, and nutrients to every part of your body. Both age and poor diet can lead to a loss of this precious gas, and in turn, blood pressure can go up, energy can go down, and you can get tingling in your hands and feet. Well, our product, Ultimate Nitric Oxide, can easily help fix this lack of nitric oxide. Go to TotalWellness.com. That's TotalWellness.com, where we are helping you to look good, feel good, and enjoy total wellness.